morning once again. Happy Easter to all of you. And a shout out to our online community. We're so glad that you are here in the building and there on the internet. So this morning, we are exploring part 2 of a 3-part series called Unfoldment of the Soul. Last week, our licensed Unity teacher, Rosa Peralta, spoke on the beginning aspects of what it is to go through a spiritual awakening, the unfolding process of moving from caterpillar to butterfly. She hinted upon the shift that must take place, moving from our own inner personal caterpillar experience where we just sort of lumber about, moving slowly, sometimes unaware of all that goes on around us. Can you picture yourself as a caterpillar? She also spoke to the Christian holiday of Palm Sunday, because there is a parallel to Palm Sunday and Jesus' triumphant ride into Jerusalem on the donkey colt that speaks to the opening steps of caterpillar to chrysalis. Because at that time, Jesus felt something was to happen, and yet he knew by riding into Jerusalem that that act alone, that unknown at the other end of that journey, was a crucial step in what he was to do on the planet. He knew at the core of his being from his prayers in the Garden of Gethsemane that this was his path. He must ride and face whatever lay on the other side. We each have gone through some level of transformation, stepping out in faith to do what we are internally guided to do, not knowing what will meet us once we arrive there. Today, we consider that the inward evolutionary process of the unfolding soul, stepping into the unknown as unlimited possibility and potential. We know that there is some change taking place within us, and yet we have no idea what the outcome will be. But we sense it. We feel it. The winds of change are blowing in the lives of our human experience. Our soul knows something's up, but we just can't put our finger on it. It's not recognizable. However, we know that we know something is going to shift. For our parallel today to the story of Jesus, I want to remind you that just like the birth story that was borrowed from civilizations prior to Jesus' timeline in history, the death and resurrection story, you know how I love my stories, the death and resurrection story also mimics that of previous civilizations to the timeline, and they predate Christian history. So Unity teaches the Bible from multiple perspectives, and the purpose of that is to awaken the student, the listener, the reader, to a wider perspective of what was happening. In one of the current Bible class books, we are using this here, The Essential Guide, The Historical Jesus by James Charlesworth. And in it he states very clearly, as a historian, that Jesus and his followers inherited the idea of resurrection belief from previous Jews. It's just history. The author also shares an interesting perspective regarding the importance of why the resurrection story became a part of the Jesus narrative. He says that it was that extra little something that revived the Palestinian Jesus movement. So, for right now, I would like to invite each of you to put on your historian hat, to listen with the mind of a sociologist. Okay? All right, we're on a roll here. So, from the Bible historian's perspective on the social impact that was taking place at the time of Jesus' life. Social impact, historian. You may be disappointed to hear that from a social impact and biblical historian's perspective, the Jesus movement ended at that point in utter failure. Wait, there's more. Consider it. It was a failed mission. Many of you have been in the military. You know what a failed mission is? The treasurer betrayed the prophet. The group's leader denied Jesus 3 times. To the masses, meaning the crowd and the mob mentality that was there only to witness the events, from their perspective, they probably believed that all that had happened was that a alleged pseudo-prophet is disgraced in public by crucifixion. Not everyone knew of his teachings. They just saw a man being hunted down. His followers express a loss of hope. A woman who is intimate with him seeks a corpse where the tomb lay empty. And majority of the disciples abandoned this movement and went back to their previous occupation as fishermen. Now do you see why, from a historical and sociological perspective, it was a failed mission? There's a lot in Bible study. I could go on, but I won't. So, historians also observe in this timeline, and what takes place next is, thanks to both Peter and Paul, that without their follow-through on the continuation of the Jesus movement, the Palestinian Jesus movement would have drowned in lost hopes. So think about that. Think about that from today's perspective, from today's social and political perspective. Consider, the candidate of your choice has just lost the election. The followers lose hope. As is typical, only a small band of very dedicated followers of this leader continue on and keep the faith until some miraculous opportunity arises and they are able to revitalize their mission, revitalize their followers with hope, and move on in a renewed sense of enthusiasm. Have you ever witnessed anything like that in your lifetime? Yeah. It's no different. The date has changed, as my father would say. So depending upon your logical brain, whether or not you can believe in a literal translation of the resurrection story is not as important to us in New Thought as is the symbolism behind the elements of the story. So in New Thought, it's always about the deeper meaning. In the Revealing Word, Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, claims that metaphysically, what the resurrection means to us is a restoring of mind and body to the original state. A restoring of mind and body to the original state. In modern language, we would call that oneness, our connection to our divine nature. In the Revealing Word, he goes on to say that the resurrection takes place in us. Every time we rise in consciousness to the Jesus realization of the indwelling life. The indwelling life that is connecting with us to our innate divinity. Many of you have had the experience of when you are connected, for example, in prayer or meditation, something miraculous happens. You feel it. When you meditate, when you go within and pray and surrender and allow the mind to quiet itself, you sense a change. You feel a change. You may become tingly or change temperature or feel more energy flowing through your body temple. And once you open your eyes, what you see is different. The colors are more brighter and luminescent. And it's like you sense all of the energy that life truly is. You see it, you feel it. You might be able to taste it. Something is absolutely different. That is the awakened Christ consciousness within. As followers of the teachings of Jesus, as opposed to worshiping the man, our insights gained from the quest of the historical Jesus are important. They reveal to us that it's not so much about the outer information and the book studies that teach us what it is to be the Christ, but it is the experience of it, the way we feel when we know we are connected to the divine, when we are able to relate to someone else as love, to love, with love, that is when we know God is with us. But the problem with all the book study and the information, and God knows I've been through all that, and I'm addicted to the next class, mind you. However, I also know that intellectual understanding alone will not give me the experience I seek. I must turn within to prayer and meditation. The outer information helps me to know what to do next, know how to go on my journey. It is the transformation for us as individuals that I seek, that you seek. Unity and New Thought takes this new and different approach. We are not so much concerned with the intellectual aspect of it all as it is with the experience. We are seeking what is called spiritual psychology, not a literal history of what happened over 2,000 years ago. We want the spiritual psychology of the experience. How can I too be as an awakened Christ in the world? As in so many of the important Bible symbols, you're laughing at my Pokemons. As in so many of the important Bible symbols, Charles Fillmore saw resurrection as an ongoing process, not a once-in-a-lifetime thing. It's not something that you check off on your bucket list. It's a daily activity. The resurrection experience can only be done by a serious spiritual student, someone who is connected and committed to awakening the Christ presence. With each and every effort in your forward motion on your spiritual journey, we also call that an inward motion to the presence of the divine within your soul. Resurrecting that relationship, resurrecting that awareness of God at the core of your being is what gives you new energy, a higher vibration, molecular connection, neural pathway synthesis, truer thoughts, purer emotions, and happier attitudes. These are just outer symptoms of the indwelling connection to the divine. For these symptoms to be of value to you, you must ask yourself, are you willing to have a resurrection experience each and every day? Are you willing to die to the human of yourself to resurrect and step into the Christ presence each and every day? Are you willing to follow the truth, and only the truth, mind you? Are you willing to be the truth in your life experience? This is the shift from caterpillar to chrysalis. The caterpillar feels the inner urge to evolve, just like you as a human having a spiritual experience feels the urge to evolve. And the caterpillar feasts on lots of lovely green leaves until it can eat no more. And then following the inner urge, it finds a lovely branch, creates the cells to give it a stem to hang upside down. And once it is upside down, it wraps itself in a cocoon, as we should all do when we pray and meditate. To turn within, to close the chamber door, to pray in secret, as Jesus said. In the chrysalis process, the caterpillar surrenders. The caterpillar surrenders, and what happens is it turns into goo. You might have been exposed to this green, lovely slime at some time in your lifetime. But the majority of this bug surrenders to the divine inspiration, and it liquefies itself. It dies to the outer caterpillar and allows the inner urging of spirit to have its way. If you open the chrysalis package at this time, all you will see is green, gooey, sticky stuff. Yeah? However, this liquid, which is universal substance and pure energy potential, is already laden with the cellular imagery of a beautiful butterfly. It's in there. Scientists tell us that these are called imaginal cells. Within the caterpillar, within the chrysalis, within that lovely green slimy goo are the imaginal cells of the butterfly. We, you, each and every one of you and everyone on this planet have the same imaginal cells in you to burst forth and become the divine Christ consciousness here on the planet. You are already laden with the cellular intelligence to emerge. You are evolved and awakened. You just need to allow the process to unfold. You are filled with the greater essence of divinity at the core of your being. Surrender as the caterpillar to the chrysalis surrenders. In developmental terms, change takes place in two major ways: translation and transformation. Ken Wilber, an American writer on transpersonal psychology, clarifies the difference between these two terms of translation and transformation. Translation, he says, is what happens when we have a powerful spiritual experience, or any type of experience, and some penetrating insights that help us shift to awaken momentarily. However, in translation, that spiritual experience and awakening, if not nurtured and fanned the flame of, we will essentially go back to the way we have always lived. We will return to being the lumbering caterpillar. at that time we may say we are changed because we had this awakening. We remember it. It's true. It happened. But when we look at our lives, we had also fallen back into whatever was our status quo. There's no real shift in consciousness. There is no evolution in behavior. That is translation. We must awaken and keep it, our soul, awake in order for us to blossom into the truth of who we are and transform ourselves. The imaginal cells are there, my friends. You have everything already in you. So I ask you now to this week visualize yourself as your highest spiritual essence, to awaken and fan the flame, and affirm with me. Together, I am radiant and fully alive. I utilize my Christ nature, divine laws, and universal laws to transform myself. Let's do that again. I am radiant and fully alive. I utilize my Christ nature, divine laws, ideas, and universal laws to transform myself. Woo! All right. So now that you've put that out into the universe, you know what the universe will do, won't you? It will challenge you to maintain that truth that you have just affirmed for yourself. So prepare yourselves for the test that will come, because you know it surely will. And know the truth of who you are. And prepare yourself for next week, week 3 in our series, where we burst forth into transformation, where we burst forth into the light, the love, the peace, the power, the presence of God here on earth. There is no going back. You're already goo. Namaste.